Tagote, she Mackenzie Schurz Gonzalez, Benesti and Nishi and Dimbanishti. Hello, my name is Mackenzie Schurz. I am the Surrounded by Rocks clan and I represent the Pine Trees Line Together clan. I come from the San Carlos Apache Reservation 2 hours northeast of Tucson, and I am a first year student here at the U of A on the main campus in Tucson. And I am currently majoring in elementary education with a minor in American Indian Studies. I came to the University of Arizona because I knew there would be some sort of Native presence here because of the way they honor the land acknowledgement when they have big events. I remember coming here thinking everyone would be nice and easy to get along with because where I came from it was so small, to the point where I knew everyone. I remember moving into my dorm and settling down and just thinking, what do I do now? I only had friends that graduated from the same high school, and in my classes, the majority of people were non native. I was so used to my community back home, it was such a culture shock the way it felt like there were so many non natives compared to just me. I remember going to NASA, the Native American Student Affairs here at the UA, and hearing about Native SOAR during the fall semester. I thought it was cool that they got the aspect of mentoring other Native students in an urban high school setting. I also thought it was cool that they would pay you to do so as well. But during that time, I wasn't so happy with being here at the U of A, only because the way people made me feel. I felt as if it was just homesickness that was making me feel that way. I was thinking about transferring, but I pulled through and thought about it, and I decided I wanted to stay for another semester. And I decided I would take Native SOAR during the spring just to see how it would be, just to try it out. Little did I know I would make some amazing friends, make some cool connections, and learn about the things I was heavily thinking about in the fall semester. When it came to the way I thought, I was wondering why it felt so off sometimes with the way people would look at me or treat me. I remember some girls actually rolled their eyes at me and closed the door on me, and I remember that's when I started to feel like I wasn't welcome. I didn't really have any other Native friends to talk about it with besides my roommate, and she understood. She said she was feeling like she was unwelcome as well, like she didn't belong. I felt the same way. That's why I wanted to transfer so bad, just because of the negative feelings I felt every time I went out. Then my spring semester came around, and that's when my Native SOAR class started. I remember I went in shy, but I was open to talking to new people. I was actually excited to meet more new people and Native students. I remember with the first sharing circle, we started talking about how the school didn't use the original land acknowledgement that was composed by Native American staff, and how they decided they wanted to use their own. And I remember thinking, whoopah, I wasn't the only one thinking things were a little unfair here. I also remember how my group talked about how we initially felt when we first arrived here at the U of A, because majority of us were first year students. I remember my classmate Maisie was telling us about how at orientation there were already some guys saying some derogatory terms to her, and I could relate to her because I felt as if the school sort of put on a facade just to make themselves look good by only stating they serve Native American communities but not actually putting in the effort to hear from their Native American community on campus, in which I also wasn't used to being around so many people all at once. Which this is when we started our weekly sharing circles, and I remember when I first read the Amanda Ticini section of our readings. I was so surprised that someone actually wrote about systemic monsters and how that concept was built into the system to oppress the people who don't benefit from the colonial ways of life, in which in her context it had to do with college challenges. The monsters in her book covered a lot of what I felt like I was going through here at the U of A. The feeling of being unwelcome, like I didn't fit in, or as if everything was sort of against me. After reading that article, I felt as if I wasn't alone because she published a whole book about the issues American higher education institutions have when it comes to their Indigenous students. Then during our sharing circles, my instructor would ask us about our questions or comments we had about the readings. We would then have conversations about the whole topic. Sometimes in class it would get heated, but it was for a great reason because we felt as if things here at the school were also unfair, like Amanda Ticini writes in her books. We had our community to talk to and bounce off of about all of these monsters Amanda writes about in her books, especially when it comes to being Indigenous in the higher education system, which is a common experience for Indigenous students. I also remember another reading we had that was about Indigenous students when it comes to college life, or the quote-unquote college life that everyone has yearned so much for whenever they come here, and how when Native Americans try to incorporate themselves into it, they always somehow feel as if they were outcasted by the majority. I remember reading that and I was like, wow, there's people who actually think about these things, only because I always felt like I just had to deal with it being that way. I never thought people would actually bring these problems to light and write about them to prove a point. I remember reading it and relating to it, especially because they were speaking in the context of Native students who come from reservations. I love how they made the point of how it is very different from the reservation, because that's exactly how I felt initially coming here. I love how in most of the readings I could relate to them, as well as after the readings I would be able to talk about them with other Native American students in Native SOAR, and how they related to the readings or how they interpreted it. One of the other readings that made me feel something was the Home Away from Home Native American Students' Sense of Belonging article, because they go in depth about the college experience when it comes to being an Indigenous student in a university setting, especially a sense of belonging. I feel as if when it comes to college you have to find where you belong, and sometimes that's hard, especially for Native American students, because sometimes there could be conflict, in which I always felt as if there should be no need for conflict, because in the end we are there for ourselves, and some of us actually want to be a community and lift each other up, especially in a higher education setting. I love how they talk about the process of coming up with a cultural center for Indigenous students, in which I know both of the authors have some sort of origin here at the University of Arizona. Makes it more comforting to think about as well, because this is where I attend school. When it came to my mentoring experience, honestly, I was so excited for this part of class, only because I recently graduated and I knew what position my mentees were in, especially being Native and trying to figure it all out right then and there. It's a very giant task to think about, but I remember going in thinking I just want them to know there is comfort in not knowing what you want to do, as well as to take chances whenever you're offered one, because you never know what that opportunity could come out as. I also thought it was nice that we had a reading about mentoring Native students into thinking about higher education, in which it was also mentioned as one of the weapons in Amanda Ticini's writings. It's a weapon and tool the nations could use, which is education. We get to pass our knowledge of what we did to get to where we are today, which is college. A lot of my mentor group came from different backgrounds, so it was very diverse when it came to the paths we took to get to where we are today, in which I also think that gave our mentees comfort. I was happy to talk to them about their day, how school was going, or just life in general, because it's not like they're going to know what they want to do on the spot. Sometimes they have to marinate and think about it deeply. I remember telling my mentees it's okay to not know as of right now, but remember to try and do something that benefits you in the long run. I also told them to stay strong when it comes to people trying to bring them down, because there will be people who will try and bring you down. You have to be resilient. In which I said don't listen to others' opinions, because in the end, it's all for you. I just wanted my students to know that they have the support I had while I was trying to figure it out. It's a lot of pressure, and you don't always have to go to college right after high school. There's many other opportunities to take, but don't stop chasing your dreams. If one doesn't work out, dust yourself off and find another route to take, because college isn't the only route. You can always come back to it later on in life, but it will always be an option. Lastly, a classroom experience I really enjoyed was when Dr. Sean came to our class via Zoom and talked to us about her journey to where she is at now, as well as the reading we were assigned that was written by her. When she was talking about it, I thought of how it was all beautifully orchestrated by Indigenous women. Just the whole concept of the program Native SOAR and the mentoring to better the college experience for Indigenous students, as well as trying to motivate Indigenous high school students to have some sort of hope of pursuing a higher education, or to at least think about what they may want to do in the future, because not a lot of Native high school students have that opportunity, especially in an urban high school setting with usually almost 1,000 kids. I think it was beautiful how we basically got to promote the U of A, but also we got to be a role model for our mentees. While I was listening to Dr. Shawton, she ended up becoming one of my role models as well because to me, she worked really hard to get to where she is today, as well as my wonderful instructor Felicia. I really started to consider going to earn my doctorate degree as well as further my education journey, which I still think about because that would be the dream. I love how they built this whole concept just to uplift the Indigenous community here on campus and to make the Indigenous community feel not so alone. Overall, the whole entire Native SOAR class throughout my spring semester really taught me that I am still a warrior trying to fight through the ways that weren't built for me, as well as I am there to mentor people who also wish to pursue a higher education, or any education for that matter, whether that be in life, their career, or their education journeys, as well as they showed me that I will always have a community here even if it doesn't feel like it. I am so thankful that they made the rest of my semester here a lot better than it was last semester. If it wasn't for this class, I don't think I would have wanted to stay here. They made me feel heard, welcome, and loved, as if they were my family as well. I'm thankful for everything the staff has done, and I'm thankful for the whole experience. I would do it all over again if I could, and I definitely recommend taking this course if you would like to find more of a community here on campus, as well as learn more about the systems that were put into place and how we could better the environment for Indigenous students slowly but surely. Ahia Shishkonjon.
Take a picture.
We're gonna say that when you actually cook for us.
Native SOAR on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Native SOAR!